Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Make Everything podcast. My name is Jocelyn. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm coming to you from my home here in the Blackstone Valley of Massachusetts, where I live with my 2 cats, Frog and Toad, and my partner, David. This is primarily a knitting podcast, but I do share anything else that I have been working on, such as paintings, or I do crochet as well, any writing, really anything that I feel like doing. This will be a place that I can share all of that, but it does end up being primarily knitting. Today is June 6th, and I have a finished object today. So let's show that first. These were in progress in my last episode. They have not been blocked, so they're rolling a little bit on the hems. And I'm not super happy with what I chose to use for the cord in here. These are just basic drawstring shorts. I designed them myself. So what I did was a folded over hem so that I could put the cord through it. All of the details on the front, back, and sides are just knits and purls, nothing fancy at all. I did some short row shaping in the back. I don't know if I actually do short row shaping the right way, because I just saw a video on Instagram maybe yesterday of another knitter showing how she does her short rows, and I did not do it that way. And I don't know if there's multiple ways to do short rows. But anyways, I did short rows. So this was actually, when I showed this in my first podcast episode, I had worked probably like to here-ish, so there was only just a little bit done, and it wasn't fitting. So I ripped the whole thing out. They were just comically large. Like I took a picture with the shorts that I was wearing at that time. So let's say that the width of my shorts was this wide, and the ones that I knit were very, very wide. So way too big. So I frogged the whole thing, started over, and redid all of my calculations because I don't do gauge swatches. I just kind of start a project, then measure the gauge, and then see if I have to fix anything based on that. It's not the best way to do it, but I don't mind frogging projects at all. I do it very, very frequently. So anyways, I managed to get all the measurements correct now. They are actually made for my partner David, but they fit me right now. But as it's 100% Pima cotton, I know that cotton shrinks a lot in the first wash. So with him being a little bit slimmer than I am, I think with the shrinkage, it'll actually end up fitting him and being snug on me, if that makes sense. Because I do plan on borrowing these sometimes. They're very comfortable. So anyways, I did the folded over hem, knit the short rows in the back, and then knit down, I think it was, I want to say like 40 rows. And then in the front section, it's so drapey, it's hard to like show. In the front section, I ended up knitting this flap. So it actually starts here, and then I knit this flap for the groin area, and attached it to the other side, and then like without cutting the yarn or anything, just immediately went into one of the legs, and then I only knit down a little bit more for the leg, and then picked it back up. So I actually the way that I knit this, I didn't really have any ends to weave in other than where I joined a new ball of yarn. So I was very proud of myself for that. I learned how to do a sewn hem for these. And I mean, they keep their shape very well and they're very stretchy. So I really like it. But yeah, nothing fancy at all. The sewn hem actually looks better, I think, going over the purl stitches than it does going over the stockinette stitches. Maybe next time I'll try to do it going in the opposite direction and see what that looks like. I have no idea if that's even a thing. But yes. So, sorry, I keep flipping these all around. These are David's finished shorts. They look gigantic, but I promise they fit. So, that is my finished object. This was knit in Berroco Pima 100, so it's 100% Pima cotton, and this was the color Forget Me Not. It was like 8421 or something color number. I can't remember exactly. I actually ended up having to order the last skein online. A couple days ago I ran out of the yarn because I only bought 2 skeins. So I drove back. It was 40 minutes to get to the shop that I had originally bought the yarn at. And I guess I just assumed that they would have more, and they didn't. So I ended up calling a ton of local yarn shops in the area. The only other store that had the Pima 100 was like another 30 to 40 minutes north of where I already was. So now I was like over an hour away from home. But I did drive all the way out there, and she had 2 different color blues, and they were not this one. So they were like sea foam or something, and then another more denim kind of blue. So in any case, it was not this blue. So I had to order yarn online for the first time in my life and wait for it to ship to me. I love the instant satisfaction of going to a yarn shop and just taking it home and immediately working with it. And I did not get that with this project, so I had to wait. But regardless, it arrived in a reasonable amount of time, and I was able to finish the project. So that was that one. This is what's left. Not a clue what I would do with this. So that's gonna go somewhere where I don't look at it for a while. And maybe one day I'll figure out what I want to do. Okay, so that's the only finished object. I have a whip. One is knitting, but I actually have a painting that I'm working on as well that I would like to share. But I'll do that after the knitting, so if you aren't super interested in that, I'll put it at the end and you can kind of skip it if you want. So my whip, I actually started it while I was waiting for the last skein to arrive on the shorts. So that was the only time in my life I've ever had 2 projects on the needles. So the next one, I did cake up a couple of balls from this cone, which I showed in my first podcast episode. I was way too excited to start working with this. It's such a pretty color. I love it. So I caked up 4 balls, and I don't have a scale. So I ended up counting 500 turns on my ball winder for each of these. Actually, I started with 400. I'm sorry if you can hear my cats meowing at the door. We're gonna pretend they're not there. The first 2 balls that I wound up, I ended up doing 400 because I didn't put enough tension on the yarn when I was spinning it, so they flew off the ball winder. So I had to stop at 400. And then the next ones, I did put enough tension to get 500 turns. And so they tangle so much when I'm knitting. So this was my solution. I crunched up a paper towel roll and shoved the cakes on there. I know I said I caked up 4, but I did actually knit a test swatch for this. And I tried it with 4 strands on, I want to say US 7 needles. And I did not like it at all. It was a little too loose of a fabric. It was a little too open. And it was way too much effort to continuously untangle these threads as I was knitting. So I actually put it away in frustration for a while, couple of days, and then I was like, okay, let me try again. Let me do 3. And I tried them on US 2 needles, and that was way too tight. So I went up. What did I do? No, I tried it with 2 strands on US 2, and it was too small and it was taking forever to knit, even though the tangling was a lot more manageable. So I went up to 3, and I went up to a size US 4. And it worked. So this looks very skimpy, but this is a top that I am working on. I started with a big strip of garter stitch, and originally this was going to tie in the back. I was just going to have 2 very long strips of garter stitch that would tie in a knot in the back, but I decided against that. I can't remember why. I think I just didn't like knitting the strip. So I did 60 rows of garter, and then I gradually moved into stockinette, and it sits like that, and this is where it's at right now. I feel like this looks ridiculous when I put it on like this. But the plan is, this is all self-drafted again. The plan is I just joined. I was knitting downstairs and I had a lot of free time today, so I decided, why don't I go film a podcast instead of just knitting? I just started. I'm doing a bit of lace. I'm doing like a lace panel down the center after the V-neck. And then the rest of it will just be plain stockinette. And then I have 2 more. There's another 12 stitches on either end that are garter, which is going to go under the arm. And then the back panel I'm going to knit separately flat, and it's just going to be 2x2 rib. And I'll seam it along the garter edge. Yeah, so this also takes forever because the tangling is such a problem. So I want to say every 2 to 3 rows, I have to stand up and hold this and let it just dangle so that I can untwist all of these strands. But the fabric itself is really nice. It's not as soft as it was on the cone. It feels a little bit more dry now that it's been worked up, but I don't mind it at all. This is my first time doing anything but a sweater or shorts, so I actually just went right ahead, cast it on, had no idea what I was doing. I didn't plan any stitch counts or anything, and then I got to the little triangle sections in the front, and then I was like, I should probably know what stitch count I need to work up to. And then I started finally planning, and then it ended up that I had to rip it back out and go back to the garter strip because I wasn't doing it right. So we got there. And I don't know if you noticed, but I just picked up, these are actually Cocoknits, the colorful stitch markers. And I got these at a local yarn shop when I drove, the one that was like over an hour away from my house that I ended up in. She didn't have the right color yarn, but I saw these, and I see so many people using these on Instagram and stuff, other knitters, and I thought they looked so cute. I didn't actually realize from just, the pictures, they're actually metal, and they're, what is it? It's like steel, but it's like coated, nylon coated steel. So they're very like clinky. So I had a gazillion of them on, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to close this. Okay. I had a gazillion of them on the triangle pieces here to show like the increased sections, because I was doing like every fourth row increasing on the sides, and then I added the middle section so I could start increasing in the center of the cup. And I had so many stitch markers so I could remember and write down all my notes of how I made them. And then I recently found this book at, I want to say Michael's. I want to say it was Michael's. And I think the first time I actually saw this was Kutovakika. Just shared this book on one of her recent podcast episodes, and then I went to Michael's and just happened to see it. And so I went through it, and I actually decided to go with the third lace pattern, which is this one here. And since this is a top down, it's actually, I'm only using this piece here where the leaves are. So it's actually going to look like this when it's done. And then I'll just go right down the center. And I think that's really the only detail that I want to add to this. I think it's already so far out of my comfort zone, and I've never done lace before either. So I think I just want to stick with something a little bit more simple. But I was going through all of these. I marked a couple of other designs that I really liked that I thought I might try. So this was another option that I was going to do down the center, but I was just going to do this. I wasn't going to add in these little cables on the side. And then same thing with this one. This was another, the glare. This was another one that I wanted to try, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to read the chart well enough to modify it so that it ends where I want to, because I only wanted one little strip, not like the whole rest of the body to be in lace. Where did my marker go? I've also never read charts before, so I'm regularly flipping back and forth to the beginning of the book where all of the codes are. Because I've never read from charts. And then the other one was, there are a lot of designs in here that have like leaves, which I really love. So this was another one that I was thinking. Although when I knit it, it would have been that way on the finished object. So I think I'm going to try incorporating lace a little bit more. Just to add a little bit of interest to some things that I work on for my future designs. So I really like this book. I didn't even get more than like 30 pages in before I found so many designs that I really liked. I did have this one, and this was gifted to me by, her name is Peg. She is one of my friends who taught me how to knit socks 2 at a time. Actually just how to knit socks in general, and my first pair of socks was knit 2 at a time. She gifted me her entire yarn stash and most of her knitting reference books. I want to say last year or the year before, since she is no longer able to knit, at least to her satisfaction. So she gave me a lot of reference books. Most of my, over there, this entire shelf and it's like bleeding up into this shelf as well, is all knitting reference books, and I think 95% of that is from her. So that is my only WIP right now. I think as soon as I finish this, I'm definitely going to cast on something that I haven't even like drawn up a design for yet, but I want to use this, and I think I'm just going to stick with one strand of this and cake up 2 balls of this and knit a cardigan, but like, excuse me, but like a very cropped cardigan, just something that I can throw over my shoulders, and it'll be like a short sleeve tee. Just something very simple that I can throw over any sleeveless dresses that I own, because I do not shave my armpits or my legs, and sometimes when I go out, I don't want to receive the looks that I usually get from people. I just don't feel like, I don't vibe with that some days. So sometimes I would like to have like a very short cropped something that just covers my arms. And I think that would make me a lot more comfortable when I go out sometimes. So that, I think I want to be my next project. And I think I already said I want to use 2 strands of this and 1 strand of this. This is 100% cotton, and this is the poly, flax, and silk mix. Don't know the percentages. All of these cones that I have around me, you'll probably see a lot of them, but I did show them all in my first podcast episode. So if you want to learn more about those, go check that video out. And that's all for knitting. So now I want to share my painting that I've been working on. I think it's called a triptych. It's when there's 3 canvases and they all line up together. I don't know if I'll show you all 3 because they're all very similar. But this is one of them. And I can't hold up all 3, obviously. I only have 2 arms. But they all go together, and they're not finished yet. I want to add some floral kind of details, but like a little bit of an abstract kind of floral. I can't tell. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's less of glare. Just add some florals here and there, and then maybe a couple little bees. But I am really enjoying painting on these. This took me, all 3 of these, I did them all at the same time, just right across all 3 boards. I want to say it took me 1 or 2 hours. And what I've been experimenting with a lot lately is in every brush stroke, it's never just one color. So when I have my palette, I'll have 3, 4, as many as like 6 or 7 different colors, and I'll layer them over each other on the palette without actually mixing them, and then just take a big scoop of that and then paint with that. So there's so many colors in each brush stroke, and I'm such a fan of how it turns out. I really love the effect that it brings. So that's something that I've been experimenting with lately. And I'm going to try to do the same thing for the florals. And just kind of add that little pop of, I'm thinking white flowers, but like the shadow parts are going to be like mixes of like dark purple and dark brown and maybe some blues in there, and make it like a grayish kind of for the shadow. And then the white, I don't know what I'm going to put like mix with the white in each brush stroke. I don't know yet. I'm just gonna play around with it once I get down to my canvas, when I feel the drive to work on those again, because they are, all 3 of these are 16 by 16, so they're kind of large. Actually, these are probably this is probably the largest piece that I've worked on to date. But only because it's the 3. I think it counts as 1 if you do it that way. So that is actually a project that I'm working on as an entry to, I think it's called, it's not Hot Night, that's the vendor day. I think it's Artists on Fire, and it's hosted by Juniper Rag, which is an art magazine out of Worcester, Massachusetts. The show will also be in Worcester, and the whole idea is everyone that submits, it has to be on 16 by 16 professional canvases or wood. These were actually made by a local art supply shop specifically for this show. So they all have to be 16 by 16, and you can submit up to 3, and everything that gets submitted is going to be sold for $200. If these sell, this will be the first time I've ever sold something at a show. So that is really, really exciting. $200 is much lower than what I normally price 16 by 16s. But that's kind of the whole point of the show, is they're creating a frenzy for art where everyone can come in, and these large paintings are a lot more accessible, I think. I love the idea, and I'm really, really excited to be going. I am also going to be at the Hot Night, which is from 4 to 9 p.m. in Worcester. I don't know all of the details off the top of my head. I'll try to put it in the description box if I remember to. That's the vendor night for everyone's going to be on this art walk in Worcester from 4 to 9 p.m. It's on a Friday. I think it's July 17th. Don't quote me on that. But that's what that's going to be. And I am just so thrilled to be going. I have another fair coming up. It's the South Shore Arts Festival in Cohasset, Massachusetts. And that is a 3-day event. So that's going to be June. It's actually this month. It's coming up in, I want to say, two weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. And it's the 17th, 18th, and 19th of this month. And I'm already feeling like I'm forgetting something in terms of preparation. I've never done a fair this big, a 3-day event. The vendor fee was enormous for me, and I have very high hopes that it turns out really well. I hope that I might be able to even sell some originals at this fair, but I'll have all of my prints, and I'll probably be bringing my other knitted garments as well, because I do have a couple of them that I want to sell, as well as I've made some nice hats I crocheted, and I have a little ribbon sewn on each of them, and they're very, very cute. I actually wear them quite a lot. But those are also for sale. And then I have, oh my God, now I have to remember what I bring to fairs. That might be it. My knitting, my crochet hats, my originals, and my prints. Oh, and then I will be doing readings there as well in the custom runes. If you guys would like to learn more about that, the readings and the runes and stuff, leave me a comment, because I would love to do a video that kind of goes a little bit more into depth of what I do there, and maybe even do a reading for you guys. I think that would be really fun. But let me know if that's something that you're interested in, or if you would like to just stay focused on the knitting and the other creative things. So that's what I have going on this month. I also have a psychic fair this month, which this month is so busy. June and July are like packed for me, and I feel like I have no free time anymore that's not like preparing for all of these things, especially a 3-day fair. How do I know how much to bring for a 3-day fair? Anyways, yeah, So that is everything that I have to share. All of my whips. Now I need to look around. I don't think I have anything else to share today. Thank you so much for joining me today for my second podcast episode. I think in the future, I don't know how often I'll be doing podcast episodes because I don't know how quickly I'll have things to show. Like if I don't finish this by the next podcast episode, I mean, it's only been 10 days since my last one was uploaded, but if I don't have things to regularly share, I think instead I might do something like Will Love Knits Bethany does, where she does a knit and chat. So I might just film while I'm knitting, talk about things that are going on with me, like other projects that I'm working on still, or anything else that's going on. So yeah, I hope that's something that you will enjoy seeing if I end up doing that sometimes in between podcast episodes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching today. You can also find me on Instagram and on Ravelry. Ravelry, I believe, is under Ellen Joss, and my Instagram is under All We Make Is Good. Bye.